Hopefully you are okay with what I'm saying. This is not a waste of time. Everything we're doing is very important. Is very important in being successful and being able to work with these trigonometric ratios. Let's proceed with the first word problem that we started with last week. We started with word problems last week. I told you word problems are some of the areas where I feel students struggle the most. So let's focus on a couple word problems. All right, let's focus on a couple word problems. Okay, so let's see what we have here. All right, so let's look at this number 1 here. Hopefully you can see that. If you can't see it, I'll read it carefully to you. All right, this says a ladder leans against a building. All right, a ladder leans against a building. All right, so let's just draw a quick diagram. All right, so we have this building. All right, that's the building. And then let's say you have a long ladder, let's say. All right, so you've got this building, and then this is the ladder. This is the ground. That's the ground, okay? Ladder leans against a building. The foot, or another word for foot is bottom. The foot of the ladder is 15 feet from the building. So this is the ladder. This is the building. The bottom of the ladder, oh, you can't see that. I am so sorry. Forgive me. This is the ladder. This is the building. All right, so the bottom of the ladder, the bottom of this ladder is 15 feet from the building. I'm sorry about that. All right, so this is 15 feet. That's 15 feet. From here to here is 15 feet. All right, so the foot of the ladder is 15 feet from the building. Then it says the ladder makes an angle of 68 degrees with the building. Oh, I'm so sorry. You can't see it. All right, so this says the ladder makes an angle of 68 degrees with the building. All right, so the ladder, this is the building. The ladder makes an angle of 68 degrees with the building. All right, so ladder makes a 68-degree angle of 68 degrees with the building. Determine the length of the ladder. Determine the length of the ladder. So this is your ladder here. That's your ladder right there. So let's call that L. This is what we're solving for. So what you have is you have this triangle where you have, that's 15, this is 68, and then you're trying to solve for L. All right, so now we're going to go through the process of what we did a little while ago. This is your angle. This is the hypotenuse. This is your 90-degree angle. That's your hypotenuse, and this is your opposite. This is your opposite. That's your hypotenuse. When you have an opposite and hypotenuse, that tells you you're going to use a sine function. So we have the sine of 68 is equal to the opposite, which is 15, over the unknown hypotenuse. All right, so the issues that my students typically have with these problems, is they don't know how to draw this diagram. That's the number one thing. They don't know how to draw the diagram. But what it's going to take is for you to read these problems very carefully. Now, as we put this in a calculator, what we've got to do is we got to remember that we are in the degree mode. All right, so you go to mode, make sure you're in the degree mode. All right, so we're going to cross multiply here. We end up with L. All right, so we end up with L times the sine of 68. L times the sine of 68 is equal to 15. So now you're solving for L. You're going to divide both sides by the sine of 68. Divide both sides by the sine of 68. That'll cross that out. And now you're just dividing 15 divided by the sine of 68, making sure that you are in the degree mode. And what we end up with is L is equal to 16.17, and that would be feet. That would be feet. All right, feet. So this would be what you'd have to do to solve this problem. That's the final answer. All right, so I want to get through as many problems as we can. Let's do another word problem. All right, so the next word problem, we're going to do this problem right here. It says a kite is flying at the end of a 260-meter straight string. All right, so let's draw a picture. All right, so when you fly a kite, you have to use common sense here. You have to use common sense. when you fly a kite, you rarely see someone with a string looking straight up in the air. Oh goodness, isn't this fun flying the kite? You don't see that. What's happening is the kite is out at some angle at a distance. So for me, let's take a look at this problem. As I draw this diagram, now you got to realize that the person is here. The person flying the kite is here. Okay, this is a person and they're flying the kite like so. The person is not here and the kite is up here. That would be similar to the situation I just communicated to you. No one is going to be flying a kite that's directly above them. That's not reasonable. All right, so let's draw a good diagram, and this is where a lot of students have issues. All right, so it says a kite flying at the end of a 260 meter straight string. So this is 260 meters, and the kite is out in a distance out here. That's the kite. How high above the ground is the kite if the string makes a 61-degree angle with the ground? So this is the ground and this is the string. The problem says that angle the string makes with the ground is 61 degrees. So you have to be able to produce this diagram. All right, so how high above the ground is the kite? You got to be able to decipher, is this the angle, is this the side that they want, or is this the side that they want? You have to read the problem very carefully. How high above the ground is the kite? So you got to be able to see that that's what they want. And some of this is going to come with practice, all right? So that said, now that you've got a good diagram, which is the issue that sometimes students have issues making a good diagram, notice how all of these problems have that right angle. None of what I talk about today applies if you do not have a right triangle. All right, so this is the opposite of this angle. This is the hypotenuse. You have the opposite. You have the hypotenuse. Again, when you're working with a hypotenuse side and an opposite side, you're working with the sine function again. So you have the sine of 61 degrees is equal to the opposite, which is h, over the hypotenuse, which is 260. And now you are just going to cross multiply. That's over 1. You cross multiply. You end up with 260 sine of 61. Sine of 61 is equal to 1 times h, which is h. You cross multiply. You're going to put that in a calculator. 260 times the sine of 61. All right, so you have sine of 61 times 260, and I get 227.4. Final answer, 227.4. So how high above the ground is the kite? 227.4. Final answer.